Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and welcome to Patriot Radio, broadcasting live from deep inside the heart of the future Liberty State. Brought to you once again by On Fire Ministries, in the legacy of Dr. Stan Monteith, bringing you the story behind the story and the news behind the news, where it's not about right or left, it's about right and wrong. It's about our hope not being in man, but in Jesus Christ. About not ending in prayer, but moving to action. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Father, deliver us from the evil one.
Welcome to Patriot Radio.
Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and today on Patriot Radio, are we on the verge of nuclear war? Russia pulls out of Syria, and North Korea takes heavy losses on the battlefield in Ukraine, and a lot more than that. Also, today with us, we have Evan Cockcroft. We're going to be talking once again about the demonic realm, and this time about principalities and fallen angels. And what does that have to do with any of us today? Here at Patriot Radio, we want to give you the information first that is also the most accurate, so that you and your families, well, they can prepare along with you for the times ahead and the times that are already upon us. But no fear. We were made for this. And if you want to follow us, you can subscribe to us on Rumble, or you can watch us on Patriot TV. We just welcome our Patriot TV audience, broadcasting 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Saturday and Sunday. And you can also follow us on Telegram for real-time intelligence analysis and breaking news. And part of the keeping us informed in the days that are ahead, well, when you have accurate information, you make good choices. And when Americans have accurate information, we make the right choice. And that brings us now to your encouraging word from the Word. First of all, I'm just going to give the overview of Luke 10:19. It says that Jesus Christ gave us authority over all the power of the enemy. Now, in Ephesians chapter 6, there's a very interesting verse in verse 12. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of darkness. Now, in the original Greek, it reads the arche, or the principalities. Those are demons that have been given authority over an area or a region. The powers, those are demons that have been given influence over people, and the world forces of this darkness. That's cosmokratoros, which refers to fallen angels. Most of you have never seen that before, but it's repeated in Romans chapter 8, verse 38. For I am convinced that neither death nor life, well, listen to this, that neither death nor life, nor angels, now that word is that means messengers, angelos, nor principalities, that's the same word, arche, nor things present, nor things to come, nor powers, that's that word again for demons that have been given the authority to influence, nor height nor depth, nor any created thing will be separated, or will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord. So once again, you have a very clear context of the authority and power of the believer over even the greatest forces of darkness, because he who is in us is greater than he who is in the world. Be encouraged with that today. And that brings us now to our guest today, Evan Cockcroft. He is the young adult pastor here at On Fire Ministries, but also he's the founder of the School of Kingdom Inheritance. And he worked with law enforcement in South Africa on satanic crimes. Evan, it's great to have you back on the show today. And I really want to get into this topic. I think it's one that Christians shy away from talking about sometimes.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Pastor Matt. Good to be with you and with all the viewers today, and to go deeper into the things of the Lord and not just scratch the surface there's a scripture that says, we perish for a lack of knowledge. And it's good to be knowledgeable about the things of the God, but also to know what the enemy is up to. Because if you know what the enemy's plans are, you're going to know how to counter plan or make strategies against him, right? So I think it's good for us to know what the enemy is up to, what has been the historical and biblical reference to powers, principalities, demons, all of these things.
So what's the difference between a fallen angel, a principality, or some other generic demon?
Well, firstly, I think principalities talk about ruling, or the Bible in Ephesians 1 verses 18 through 21 even talks about being given authority over all the ruling spirits. So a principality is a spirit that would rule an area or have an agenda over an area. And if I think about America today, one of the biggest attacks right now would be the perversion of sexuality, the abortion of children. So, and the plan, seemingly, when I put those two together, is to stop humans from populating the earth. And so, why in this season, in the timeline of humanity, would this be a demonic strategy working right now? I mean, my thought is that we are starting to overwhelm the enemy with sheer numbers of Christians that are being saved. And so the enemy strategy would be to stop people from reproducing and increasing God's army, or the ability for people to get saved and host God. And so the enemy's plan, really revealed in the season, would be to stop. So the principality over America right now is, let's stop people from reproducing, let's stop big families, let's stop people through sexual perversion. Where people, two men together, can't have a child. It's physically impossible because God hasn't ordained it that way. So it just isn't that way. But I mean, knowing that that's the strategy in this era against this generation, really, that's not the demons doing it. The demons do the other work of that thought or those ideas. But the principality has an agenda on this region of America, and this is one of those ideas, if that makes sense.
It does. So that begs the question, how do demons, fallen angels, principalities, how do they get authority? Because they didn't start with it.
You see, when you believe a lie, you empower a liar. And when Satan told humanity, humans specifically, I think one of the biggest lies that got told is at the cross. When Satan realized he had lost, that he disappeared, and that he made himself seem like he did not exist. So atheism, all of that sort of thought, science, all of these sort of prevailing theologies or thinking processes that started to come in. Well, Satan's not real. He doesn't exist. He went and hid himself from humans so that he could work in the dark, and he stole the authority that was given to me and you to rule and reign through lies, through deception in the garden. Did God really say that you? No, that's not what God said. So he brought perversion to the truth, and thereby stealing the authority or the dominion that we were supposed to have over the earth, and inadvertently he ruled through stealing from us what was given to us to rule and to reign. And so I believe that's how that has happened.
So we give authority to demons to be able to influence us, or as a group of people, we could give authority for a principality to be over a region.
Yeah, that's correct. If there's a partnership with the demonic strategy, whether it's through the giving of blood, the blood covenants are important for if Jesus had to seal the new covenant in blood to make it real, don't you think Satan would also pervert the giving of blood to make covenants with humanity, with himself? I think he duplicates or replicates everything that is first godly. And so if God uses blood covenant to seal deal from the moment in the garden, I'm sure Satan is using that. So now we enter into this generation where we've inadvertently, many people have given, through abortion and through all of this stuff, we have given a lot of blood to the demonic realm. And is that like, oh, woe is me, we're under God's judgment? I think the church is needing to wake up to the reality that we need to be more proactive. We need to have a more biblical stance on a lot of these topics so that we don't fall prey to the plans of the enemy, and that the church isn't in our silence. We are in agreement actually with some of the strategies over the earth right now, and we do need to stand against that and say, no, these things are not okay. We love you. We don't want you to make a mistake, and there has been a mistake. Come to the church. Let us adopt your children. Let us take you in as a community. Let's clothe, let's look after people that are going through these struggles, so that there is an option for them, not to have to partner with what's going on and the strategy of the enemy in this season.
So one of the interesting things that you said just now is that silence can mean agreement. Just yet again, somebody came to On Fire and said, hey, our church doesn't believe in this, but we know that you understand it. Can you help us? And speaking of the demonic realm, at some point, the silence in it's not that you're focusing on the enemy, but you do have to recognize the reality that is in front of us, and that God has given us the ability to deal with that. How do you think this next generation can be reached with the truth, that they don't have to sit there and take beating after beating from the demonic realm, or robbing after robbing from the demonic realm, or destiny destroying things after destiny destroying things from the demonic realm?
Sure, Matt, I wanna count these next words very carefully, because I don't want to seem contentious or attacking. But I believe one of the biggest issues facing the church, not only in America, but globally, is weak pastors or weak teachers that won't preach the truth. The reason people don't know the truth is because they're not being taught it. There are people in positions with pulpits that are running churches and doing stuff that, for whatever reason, have not taught the full revelation of the gospel. And you read Ephesians, we read throughout the Bible, we'll take the idea, not the idea, but salvation is by grace and by the blood of Jesus, and we stop. There's no more teaching beyond that, and then let's live your best life, and there's all these other things we add on. But actually, part of it is that there's a young generation that are crying out, and they're running after a move of God, and God is pouring out in this generation like never before. I mean, I've been saved and been in the mission field and in ministry, and I'm going into 12 years now. And all I've ever known is meetings where demons are manifesting, where the sick are being healed, where prophecies are being given from stage and being fulfilled accurately. I'm not talking about Facebook stuff where you go and look up someone's information. I'm talking about there's a move of God, and the young people are leaving the church in droves, the traditional church or that church, because what they desire, what their spirit is looking for, it's not there anymore. The pulpit has lost its power in the world today. The preachers that do not stand for truth and stand up and preach what is needed to be preached, those churches and those denominations are really starting to lag and fall away. And for some reason that they are dying. But the ones that are pursuing a move of God, that are saying, hey, come, the young people are coming in droves. There is a massive explosion globally, and we've seen it. Yeah, in Spokane, we came in as young adults, pastors, and I mean, I remember the first couple of months, we went from 15, we had 88 up to 100 people coming in to encounter God. People came in, started another movement that left, and they've seen over 300 young people come to their events and in the week, because the young people want to see these things. They're tired of being bound and being fed lies that have left them powerless, and the gospel hasn't left us without power, without an option. We are the answer that the world needs right now. What we've believed and what we've so fiercely contend and given our lives to has to have a physical outworking into the reality of our society, into the reality of government, into the reality of people's lives, into children's lives, into the schooling system. It has to influence every aspect of life. And if our preaching doesn't empower people or allow people to encounter that, there is something's wrong. Something is fundamentally wrong with the gospel that we've believed, and something is fundamentally wrong with the gospel that is being preached. It has been watered down. It is not what God has died for. It is not what Jesus wanted to release on the earth in these days.
When we come back from the break, how can Christians cast out fallen angels or cast out principalities or fight against these dark forces?
Hey folks, it's your buddy John Rich here and co-founder of Old Glory Bank. Let me ask you a question. Why would you trust your banking with people that hate you? Well, you shouldn't. We're building a freedom economy, and now we have a pro-America bank. It's called Old Glory Bank. Check it out at oldglorybank.com and open yourself an account today.
Old Glory Bank is a full-service, FDIC-insured online bank with business and consumer banking and customers in all 50 states. It takes just 8 minutes to open an account at oldglorybank.com.
The Donor Deck represents a groundbreaking independent crowdfunding initiative driven by patriots like you to bring back our esteemed President Donald J. Trump to office. With unwavering passion, we pledge all profits from the sale to MAGA Inc. and Fight Like a Flynn PAC. The exquisitely detailed challenge coin is a timeless collectible to be passed down to generations. It symbolizes your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. Get your Donor Deck now. Go to the Patriot.tv store and click on Donor Deck. Enjoy the magnificent artwork and scripture on each playing card, knowing our appreciation for your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. You'll get this keepsake collectible challenge coin acknowledging your support for Donald Trump's run back to the White House, and the Donor Deck of 52 exquisite playing cards, plus a beautiful display case to show your challenge coin. Go to the Patriot.tv store and get your Donor Deck now.
And we're back with Pastor Evan Cockcroft. He's a young adult pastor here at On Fire Ministries and also the founder of the School of Kingdom Inheritance. And he also worked with law enforcement in South Africa dealing with satanic crimes. So this is a very controversial topic, what we're about to dive into, because there's some folks out there that believe that you cannot really come against a principality or even a fallen angel for that matter. And it's thrown a little bit of fear into the Christian community, again, regarding how to deal with demonic forces that might be trying to influence your family or your life. So how do we approach this subject with principalities and with fallen angels?
So I think, Matt, I think one of the keys is, for sure, don't get involved with stuff you don't have knowledge about. And that's not to scare anyone. Get educated, get equipped, get learned how to deal with it. You know, if I gave my 4-year-old son a loaded automatic rifle, surely there's going to be issues, right? And I take off the safety and I say, go for it. Man, he can end up shooting himself, his mom. I don't know. And I think it's the same with the sort of level of spiritual warfare. When we are immature in our understanding of things and our authority and our power, you know, we might end up running around with an automatic weapon in the spirit. Also saying to pastors all kinds of weird things, like trying to correct them when I'm been saved 8 months or 6 months because I have an insight of God, or pastor's wife has a Jezebel and I want to cast out these things. I think we need to be strategic and we need to be wise in how we work with these things. And so when it does come to the level of principalities and sort of working with that stuff, intercession prayer, a good understanding on intercession prayer and how to undo these things, a good understanding of the angelic realm, that we're not left alone. We don't need to go up into the spiritual realm in some weird way, and we get to partner with angels that have been sort of created to deal with these stuff, which biblically they have been dealing with stuff for a long time. I think about Daniel fasting and praying, and after 21 days, Michael, the archangel, arrives and says, hey, I've answered your prayer 21 days ago. I've been contending against the king of Persia, the principality over Persia. I've been fighting him for 21 days. Victory has been given, and so breakthrough has come. And I think we should not be ignorant, number one, to the fact that we're in a war. And secondly, now that we know, we don't just run into the front line without our armor on, without being in the right community, without being with having the right knowledge on the battlefield with the loaded automatic weapon, and end up shooting either God's army or ourselves, or not dealing with what needs to happen. Because when we start to upset principalities or go after them and try to change a nation, right? Have we not experienced that in the last year?
Yeah.
When someone stood up for truth and stood up against the evils and the wrongs in the world, did they not try to get taken out? Were they not shot at? I'm referring to President Trump. So this is not taken lightly, right? This is something that needs to be done with the right covering and the right understanding.
So let's talk about what is that right understanding. So somebody's in a community, they're part of a church, they get the unction to really start dealing with some of the demonic forces operating in their area, in their community. How should they start? You talked about get educated, but what should be the next steps after that?
So I'll tell you a story how the Lord sort of took me along some of this stuff. So I wanted to intercede for our area. I grew up in South Africa, so we had a lot of racism, a lot of tribalism, and in the tribalism there was polygamy was practiced. The young girls are sort of sold into slavery. Still happens, a low current, maybe not public on Facebook, but there is sort of this sort of stuff happening where young kids, if your family is poor, you go serve another family and you work for free, and your family would be given stuff by a rich family. So this sort of prevalent sort of stuff happening in South Africa. We had the apartheid happen. So there's still a lot of healing happening with these sort of things. These are all principalities that are at work in the country. So I'm starting to ask God, I'm like, hey, Lord, help me to have an effect in the kingdom. I don't just want to sit around when I've got nothing to do and sort of watch YouTube clips only of hunting and fishing and all these people having an adventure. Meanwhile, I'm not having the adventure when I'm called to have an adventure, right? We're called to be effective in the kingdom. And so I sort of have this concept to let's do that. And the Lord starts to take me on a journey. I started to pray against things. There's moments of warfare. There's fasting. The Lord said, hey, I want you to have 21 days. I want you to fast, not for power, because I fast in the power. I fast because I'm submitted to God and there's something He's doing. Is fasting spiritually release something? Every major fast I've ever had, whether a 21, 20-day, 10-day, it doesn't matter. I've come out of that place and it's something shifted for me and when I minister. But I remember I wanted to do an event, and we had just had a looting that had happened in South Africa. And so a lot of the sort of informal rural people rose up in COVID. They were hungry. There's no food banks in South Africa. There's no government aid. Unfortunately, the government decided to keep that for themselves. And so we have all these hungry people who want to eat, and they come, thousands of them come into town and start emptying malls. They just empty malls from food, and then just the mob mentality takes over, and they start stealing or everything in the shops are empty. And we have to start looking after. We look after our communities, but we're praying this whole time that the right thing to do was to seek God. And so we started to pray, and God takes me on this journey where I end up going to preach in a city. And in the city, I meet someone, the son of the last assassin who killed someone called Chris Hani. So you can go look it up on the internet. So Chris Hani was assassinated. He was one of the ANC leaders. This was the last government assassin that was hired by the government to kill this man. His son ends up walking into a meeting we're doing, and his son is gay, having all these problems, comes and has this radical encounter with Jesus. And for time-wise, I'm not going to share the whole story. But after we minister to this man, I come back to Durban, and I'm like, wow, that's amazing testimony. And the Lord said, that was me giving you authority in the spiritual realm against the spirit of racism, and that we need to go after. So I do an event down in a rural area where they still practice polygamy. The chief rules. He's got headmen. They slaughter cattle every week. This is happening on a daily basis in this community. So we go there, we do this event, and we pray. And my friend comes and helps me. We draw bloodlines. We pray in the spirit. We release angels. We take back the land. We claim it for Jesus. We do this event. We're preaching. I have a radical encounter where a Zulu pastor came. He blew a shofar, a kudu horn over me. And it was actually that was the moment where my prophetic friend said, "You've just been released from Africa to America," as part of our story. So I get released. After the event, Pastor Matt, after the event, the police come to me with kids in their car that were walking in the streets that had been kidnapped and had been stolen and were ready to be given over to abuse and pornography industry, all of this stuff. And the kids said, "We don't know how we got out. The doors opened. We walked out. The people that had held us captive were confused." And we the police come to us and said, "We don't know what's happened in this area, but these kids have been missing for months, some of them for years. No one knew where they were. They were missing people reports." These kids started to be found coming out of witch doctors' houses, out of the chief headman's houses, out of the places where they were abused and they were being kept. So the principality got completely taken down in that area. But the Lord had to lead us in the way to do it. And then there was a claiming of the land, a repenting on behalf of the people and the church, actually, for not taking their authority in this area. And after that, after we threw the blood on the ground and blew the shofar, and it seems weird, one of those churches, the flags and the shofars, but the evidence was the police brought the children that had been lost and missing cases, and all the missing cases in that area, in that region, were found in one day, found walking the streets. That's the testimony. That's the destruction of a principality in that area. Was there backlash? For sure. We experienced physical attack. We experienced all these things that happened. And be aware that you're going to walk into a praying community, be prayed up, be fasted up, know what you're doing, and be obedient to what Jesus is saying when you go into those areas so that you have victory and we are not defeated. So, Matt, that's one story I can share with you about how to deal with it.
That's amazing. And what an amazing story. Inheritthekingdom.com. That's the website for the School of Kingdom Inheritance. If you could take a minute or two, tell people about the School of Kingdom Inheritance, because I think a lot of people just said, "I didn't know that. And there's something there that is stirring in me. What can I do next?"
So me and my wife, we moved to America about 2 years ago on a word, and the unction of the Lord came in, and through a tour met here. But we feel that, and our heart is really, Matt, is that we can entertain the saints and we can fill buildings. But if we equip the saints for the act of service, that we would win the nations and we would take back the kingdom of God. So my life and my wife's life is some of the stuff we've learned and still learning. I haven't arrived. I'm still learning every week. This last month's been a big learning curve for us, and much leadership stuff and some other powers and principality stuff. But that we would, with our lives, release other revivalists into the world, other people that would reproduce discipleship, and to go deep into the Word of God, but also to encounter God. When God touches something that is ordinary, because we're ordinary people made from dust and clay and mud. But when the fire of God touches an ordinary life, something happens. You become extraordinary. It doesn't consume you, it empowers you. And I believe that this is the will of God for everyone, that we would be supernatural people that walk out our belief system and see the nations and see churches on fire, that when there are issues in the world, the government's phoning the church and saying, "Hey, you have the answer." Not, "Let's quiet the church and put masks on them." No, if the church isn't praying, the government doesn't do well. If the church isn't in wholeness and fullness, that we've seen the testimony of that. And we want to equip people to go in, to refire up the church, but to change the nations for Jesus. And we want to impart what God has taught us. We're not trying to sell Jesus or another school. What we are saying is, come and give your life to Jesus for 6 months. Come and sit under good teaching. We bring speakers in from around the world with revelation, with the scriptures, but most importantly, with an encounter that will ignite you. And so that we go out into the world and we do things that matter for Jesus, not just a mediocre life where we get to the end and, "Hey, that was a great life," but we can look back and go, "I've left nothing behind. And this is what God did with a surrendered life. This is what I've seen happen in my life." And we we want to input into America. We want to shift this culture. We want to help as many people as we can, equipped to cast out demons, to see the sick healed, to preach the gospel, and to see the lost saved.
Pastor Evan Cockcroft, founder of the School of Kingdom Inheritance, inheritthekingdom.com. Thanks for joining me on Patriot Radio today. Blessings to you. Love these stories. We're going to do more of these episodes in the future. I think it's just amazing what happens out of this, because people will contact us and it's just, it's turned a key in their heart. So thank you for being obedient to the Lord.
Amen.
And when we come back from the break, your daily intelligence briefing, are we on the verge of nuclear war?
Hey, Patriot TV fans, feel like there's nothing on the radio for like-minded, intelligent people like yourself? Well, great news. Now you can stream Patriot TV on TuneIn during your drive to or from work. Whether you're stuck in traffic or cruising down the highway, you can catch every conversation from your favorite show hosts right in your car. No more mindless jibber-jabber. Tune in 24/7 on the road, at the gym, or wherever you are. Download the free TuneIn app now on Apple, Android, or your computer and never miss a beat. Patriot TV, now on TuneIn.
Now we have it. Kingdom Crunch.
It's important to start breakfast off with a power-packed punch. You want a complete amino acid score, good protein. If you turn the label over and look at the back of the box, there is no added sugars in either one of these flavors, either peanut butter or acai bowl.
Peanut butter has 11 grams of high-quality protein. Acai bowl has 8. Peanut butter has 11 grams of carbohydrate, acai bowl 12, and both of them have a good solid fat content at 6 grams. Very filling, very healthy.
You will be fueling yourself with high quality fuel, starting off the day right. You can even use Kingdom Crunch as a snack in the middle of the day if you just have a craving and you want to eat something that is good for you, it has a crunch, and doesn't have a lot of calories.
There you go. Diabetic friendly, keto friendly, paleo friendly, Kingdom Crunch, and
Child friendly.
And we're back. And now your daily intelligence briefing. Coming to us from the globalist front.
The future is built by us. We have the means to make progress on the global agenda.
What is going to happen? Are we headed toward a digital currency? Is that why Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy want to get rid of the Federal Reserve? Or is it something totally different? President Trump's pick for Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has stated that he believes the world is on the cusp of a, quote, global economic reordering, end quote, and he would like to, quote, be a part of it, end quote. But interestingly enough, this is one of the things he said that really stuck with me. I think we're in a long-term bull market in gold. We're seeing reserve accumulation by central banks. I follow it closely. It's my biggest position. This comes on the cusp of discussions about getting rid of the Federal Reserve System in the United States. Yes, I've advocated for that for years. So many other people. But what would be replacing it? The answer should be really nothing. It should be the free market. Now, if currency was created based on all the different assets out there, gold, silver, and even products and goods, kind of like what Adam Smith said with his real bill theory, well, that's one option. But the question is always going to be, if you do that digitally, is there going to only be one way in and one way out? Because anytime that happens, there's control. If there's multiple way-ins and multiple ways out, and it's decentralized, then that may in fact be a true free market solution. That brings us now to the China front. Spy drones from China are the likely cause of unexplained aircraft wreaking havoc over the United States, House Foreign Affairs chair says in bombshell claim, according to the New York Post. Well, there's a whole bunch of other stuff happening right now, too. Could it be something else? First, it was the White House said these are airplanes. Then they kind of had to backtrack on that because it was very clear these were drones. And then one of the drones crashed. And then what really is going on? It seems like a lot of disinformation out there. Let's see if we can get to the bottom of it here when we get to the national front. Also, the Chinese release an electronic warfare kill list for U.S. carrier groups. The Chinese report has revealed a catalog of U.S. naval targets, including radars and sensors, to be attacked in any future conflict. The PLA, or the People's Liberation Army Electronic Warfare Unit, has produced this list of targets. And, well, in a potential conflict, this is precisely what they would attack. Giving away their strategy, this seems like more of a threat. However, based on this most recent exercise, would hope that the U.S. military is taking that seriously, because in the wake of that report, China launched hypersonic test planes. The vehicle designs are related to China's MD-22 hypersonic military aircraft concept that emerged in 2022. Video and pictures have emerged showing the testing of these high-flying and high-speed uncrewed air vehicles, aka drones, including aerial releases from one of these drones and a high-altitude balloon. The air vehicle designs are related to this concept, but it seems like they've also made modifications to them since some of this information came out earlier, which is interesting because then the United States B-52 strategic bomber flying alongside Japan's F-15s as a bilateral exercise should come as no surprise. Tit for tat as things in the South China Sea begin to heat up. Taiwan also received its first batch of 38 M1A2T Abrams tanks from the United States, part of a total order of 108, so basically a third. What's interesting about this is that it was the first delivery of tanks to Taiwan, well, since 1994. Again, things heating up in the South Pacific. Now, 20 years ago, actually over 24 years ago, there was a secret speech by General Chi Watian. And in that speech, he said that the Communist Party, if it ever felt like it was going to lose power due to an economic problem, it would go to war to save power. Well, China's 10-year yield is cratering right now. Just one more indicator. Also, Tibetan leader calls for independent Tibet as key to Sino-Indian border resolution. He said that he's also the ministry for the Department of Security and Defense of the Central Tibetan Administration. This is for a permanent peace with China. The only option is recognition of a unified Tibet as an independent state. Before, when people have said that, those were fighting words. Japan sees nuclear as the cheapest source of energy and the cheapest baseload power. There's that word again we've been talking here on Patriot Radio about. So the Japanese are getting it. Will the United States get it? That small modular nuclear reactors and microreactors are the wave of the future alongside hydrogen fuel cells and natural gas. And that brings us now to the Middle East front. In response to lessons learned from October 7th, the IDF announced today the formation of a new quick response force, the Israeli National Guard, named the David Division. It will comprise volunteers, former IDF soldiers aged 38 to 58. I think that the incoming Trump administration needs to really pay attention to this. Now, John F. Kennedy understood that a robust civil defense force was one of the greatest deterrents to an attack by a foreign adversary. Particularly, veterans who have already been trained, rallied to be a part of this, should be part of the plan and policy of the U.S. civil defense. Again, 38 to 58, organized into 5 brigades across Israel. Members will be, and listen to this please, members will be permitted to keep their weapons and military gear at home, enabling rapid deployment in the event of another October 7th style attack. This was the original design of the militia, which is written in the Constitution here in the United States. But it came from something called Knight's tenure, if you've never heard of that before. It actually was from Europe, where on the fringes of the Roman Empire, estates were made and land was granted to knights. And in return for that land grant, the knights had to raise a certain specific number of troops, armed and ready and trained at a moment's notice to defend the kingdom. So that's where it came from. The idea here in America is, as free people, that we should have weapons at home, but even organized into a National Guard or some other civil defense force here in the United States makes sense. And it was something that John F. Kennedy advocated, and I believe helped to win the Cold War. So Israel setting a very clear example for something that can be easily implemented here. And there are veterans across this country who are ready to be part of a rapid response force and volunteer for it in defense of this great nation, because that oath never expires. Also, the United States is seeing a consolidation of Russian capabilities in Syria post-fall of Assad. They have ceased flight operations over the country. It appears they're taking steps that would be necessary for their forces to leave Syria. Also, an announcement came in from Russian media that a special aircraft of the Russian Air Force evacuated the remaining Russian, Belarusian, and North Korean diplomats recently from that airbase in western Syria. A U.S. defense official has told the New York Times that a Turkish cross-border operation into northern Syria may be imminent, with Turkish forces and their militia allies seen amassing in the north of Kobani on the border between Turkey and Syria. Well, why is this happening? Because the United States is now taking over former Russian bases in the west of the country. A lot is happening also in the south, with Israel taking Mount Hermon and most of the Golan Heights, and Druze and Christian leaders in the southwest of Syria asking to become part of Israel, and a huge influx, actually, of recruitment into the IDF from those same villages, which makes it very interesting that Netanyahu gave an address on Syrian territory on Mount Hermon. Will remain in this important place until another arrangement is found that will ensure Israel's security. That sounds like a statement that they intend on keeping that into the foreseeable future. The U.S. State Department also announced that a ceasefire between Turkey and U.S.-backed PKK and YPG forces in northern Syria has been extended another week. So that kind of fell apart, at least briefly, for a few hours. Now it's been extended. U.S. soldiers and Kurdish SDF forces started joint patrols. I'm going to say that again. U.S. soldiers and Kurdish forces started joint patrols near Kamashili in northern Syria. Russian forces in the city are about to evacuate from the city. So here's exactly corroboration of what we just talked about. And the fact of the matter is that puts U.S. soldiers once again in harm's way. It'll be interesting to see how Trump addresses this. Also, Abu Muhammad al-Jolani, or the Golani, leader of the HTS group that toppled the Syrian president, said Monday that rebel factions in Syria would be disbanded and their fighters would join regular army units. In other words, they're going to change uniforms and get better equipment. Meanwhile, the USS Harry Truman transited the Suez Canal, headed toward the Mediterranean Sea. So some significant movements happening there in the Med. It's going to be interesting to see. Also, rumors are that there will be a hostage deal here very, very soon between Israel and Hamas. Iran also shut down cities and schools as a fuel crisis spirals out of control there. We're seeing Iran right now in a serious and very quick decline as their proxies were soundly defeated throughout the Middle East. Not completely defeated, but defeated nonetheless. It'll be interesting to see if there isn't, based on fuel shortages, especially due to a surge in demand caused by freezing weather, if that doesn't lead to more unrest in that Islamic Republic. Also, you will see various terror factions in the West Bank, if we could have that picture come up, have declared war against the Palestinian Authority. And that quote there, this is about to get very messy. And General Flynn's quote, yeah, it is about to get very messy because jihadists, once again, are trying to take control, at least what's left of them, this time, though, in territory already taken by Israel. Lastly, on kind of a humorous note, it looks like the leader of HTS has put on a suit for the first time, and of course, probably doing that for Western audiences. Looks like he hasn't worn one in a long time, and somebody probably gave him that one. So some Arabs are now calling him, quote, discount Zelensky, end quote. And that brings us now to the Russia front. Yesterday, the Security Service of Ukraine accused Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov, the commander of the Russian Armed Forces Radiological, Chemical, and Biological Defense Unit, of ordering the use of chemical weapons during the war in Ukraine. And then they assassinated him and his assistant in Moscow. This is a dramatic development for a couple of reasons. First of all, it happened on Russian soil. Secondly, this is a high-ranking general. And I will add, thirdly, because of some of the other indicators inside the United States regarding potential weapons of mass destruction here on U.S. soil, and then this happens, this is something that could very well be a trigger event. Now, Russia has had many red lines crossed already. But the fact is that something is happening on the highest levels right now, and it seems to be that there is a serious push to try to start World War III before Trump takes office on January 20th. And Ukraine announced that it became the world's fifth country to possess a laser weapon called the Trident. Now, why these weapons are now proliferating is because this is the quickest and the cheapest way to take down drones and potentially missiles and rockets. North Korean forces suffer several hundred casualties fighting Ukrainian forces in Kursk, according to U.S. military officials, to Reuters. But we've been reporting about this for a month now. Those losses have already been happening. Now it's being made official. The reason the North Koreans have forces there is so they're battle hardened and prepared for war with South Korea. And that brings us to a word from our sponsors.
Attention patriotic businesses. Do you want to see your sales skyrocket by selling your products or services to like-minded patriots? Well, if you're an advertiser who embodies the timeless principles of freedom, liberty, and patriotism, look no further than Patriot TV. Our viewers are responsive, economically active patriots who are committed to supporting businesses like yours that align with their values. For more information on advertising on America's new network of proud American businesses, email us at advertise@patriot.tv.
I couldn't give anything a higher endorsement.
I would be remiss had I not include Cardio Miracle on my very short list of secrets.
It's the real deal. It's a real product. It's not another supplement.
I'm operating about 6 to 8 hours, and I've noticed that being on this Cardio Miracle has made a huge difference.
Since I started taking Cardio Miracle, about 8 months into it, the benefits have been fantastic.
You know, if I get hungry, then I just have a Cardio Miracle.
Not only is it safe, but it's necessary to take Cardio Miracle to stay well.
This let me sleep. It's feeling with more energy, more get up and go, and it's all because of what this company does.
For me as a doctor, Cardio Miracle is a staple.
Cardio Miracle to me is hope in a glass.
To try Cardio Miracle for yourself and get a special fan discount, go to the host page right now and click the link for Cardio Miracle.
Jihadist literature proliferating in Europe and particularly in Germany. This is extremely offensive. Quote, integrate yourself, white woman, end quote. And the reason is, quote, this is no longer only your country, it will never be again, end quote. This poster spotted in Dortmund, Germany, raising a lot of eyebrows and a lot of questions, but also underscoring the huge shift in German politics towards anti-immigration. We'll get to that here in a second. German CDU leader says 400,000 Syrians must go back. Friedrich Merz, the leader of Germany's Christian Democratic Union, stated that 4,000 Syrian asylum seekers have no place in Germany and should go back to Syria. He blamed the welfare crisis on jobless refugees. Also, official data shows that 63% of Germany's welfare claimants, or 2.5 million people, have a migration background. Also interesting, as part of that, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz lost a vote of confidence in his government, putting Germany on the path to snap elections on February 23rd. Interesting with that is it was overwhelming. So Germany is about to get a new government, and it sounds like a more conservative one. Now, regarding the United Nations and the war between Ukraine and Russia, Brazil abstained from a UN vote calling for the return of Ukrainian children illegally deported to Russia. Trafficked. Based on reports from United Nations observers, the text on human rights in Russia-occupied Ukrainian territories was approved with 81 votes in favor. Illegal deportation of Ukrainian children is one of the reasons that led to the International Criminal Court to issue an arrest warrant against Vladimir Putin. Well, the trafficking happened, unfortunately, on both sides. But there were some orphans and children rescued from Ukraine so that they were not trafficked and could actually lead a good life. From the BRICS news, Russia says it developed a vaccine against cancer that will be rolled out to patients free. We're going to keep our eyes on this and see what happens with this. Fascinating that this is coming out, especially with the discussion of vaccines all over the place here in the United States. And that brings us now to the National Front. Canada is reportedly deploying what it calls an aerial intelligence task force as part of a $908 million plan to address U.S. President Donald Trump's concerns about migrants and fentanyl flowing across the northern border. Amazing what strength and one phone call does for the United States. Also, 2 ministers so far have resigned. There might be more. Justin Trudeau may be likely forced to resign, with an announcement coming in hours, according to several sources. I'm going to watch that and see. By the way, though, Trump called him Governor Trudeau again in reference to his remark about Canada becoming the 51st state. An alarming report: the deep state within the National Archives has been politically purging our country's historical records and will use AI to automate the process. This is one of those cautionary tales about AI taking over government workforce positions, is that AI can be used to root out and eliminate federal records that don't fit a preferred narrative. It's very dangerous. We need to maintain the purpose, unfettered and unpoliticized, of the National Archives. Interesting post from Sean Ryan. A nuclear warhead has gone missing? Question mark. I'm just going to leave that here. Is that what the drones have been sniffing around for? Well, according to a CEO of a drone manufacturing company that has government contracts, maybe. But that, combined with the assassination of Russia's nuclear or radiological, chemical and biological defense general, is there something going on here that we don't know? And is it a bunch of misinformation out there to keep us from the truth? I think the American public deserves answers, and some of those answers might be far more nefarious than we think. New Jersey Mayor says that the state told him to call hazmat and a bomb squad if any drones are downed. That's very interesting as well. And then we have this curious post with a video from TikTok about a new laser weapon, yes, in the form of a pistol, just like Star Wars and Star Trek. One of the biggest anti-Trump organizations from 2016 is gearing back up for the Trump Resistance 2.0. Its latest strategy call got 849 views over the past 2 weeks. Again, Doesn't look like there's a lot of traction, but they are trying to gear up. Which brings us to an interesting story from James O'Keefe. Joe Biden is dead, quote unquote. National Security Council advisor inside the White House details Biden, quote, can't say a sentence. Not that he's actually dead, but that he is completely incapacitated. Who has known about this and for how long? And how long have the American people been deceived? Also, a bit of good news. Liz Cheney was referred for criminal investigation for alleged witness tampering. And we'll see if that goes anywhere, but at least some people are trying to bring accountability. Also, the Wisconsin Christian school massacre suspect was identified, and the alleged manifesto shows radical views. What are those radical views? Well, that manifesto, according to Western Journal, is packed with unchristian beliefs, yet no motive has been established for the shooting. And lastly, Manhattan grand jury indicts Luigi Mangione for first-degree murder and terrorism charges in the United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson assassination. And that is the briefing. Remember that the antidote to dependency and socialism is to be a God-fearing, self-reliant, freedom-loving American. So what can you do about all of this? Because that's a lot. The first is start a prayer meeting at your church to discuss principalities that are over your region, what the Lord is putting on your heart, and begin to pray into it in community, what you should all do about it. Go to your pastor, ask him, I'd like to start a prayer meeting, and here's the purpose, here's the focus. Most pastors will say, thank you, I've been thinking about it already. So go ahead and take the initiative for your community and for your families. Now, coming here over the Christmas holidays, as you're meeting with your family and discussing things and topics, also take an opportunity to pray over your family about what might be troubling them. It'll be interesting as you share between family members. You'll realize that the attacks on your family from the spirit realm are virtually identical, but you just didn't know it. But take an opportunity, press into the Lord, and protect your family. This is Matt Shea. Thank you so much for joining me on Patriot Radio today. May God bless all of you. He is making this generation the greatest one. The awakening is here. Keep up the fight.